Hello, and welcome to this space. My name is Dougie. You can also call me Candex or Dex for short. Um, really quickly before we get into everything, if you want to find me outside of this ASMR channel, I have a personal channel, Sugi, and as well as a Twitter and Instagram, also at Sugi. All of those have the same handles. This information, if you're going to want it at any point, is always in the description box at the very bottom. That being said, thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to make some space today because it was on my heart, I guess. I woke up this morning feeling like mentally in a good space. I'm now kind of like gloomy and trying to like be in a better relationship to myself, and also with like different things that have like triggered some upset for me today. But even though I was feeling like mentally good when I woke up today, I woke up with some back and neck and shoulder pain. I do want to do a sort of like point of view massage video for like as an ASMR roleplay at some point soon, for maybe different kinds of pain, because sometimes when I am in those kinds of pain, I gravitate towards those kinds of ASMR videos. But today, I was experiencing some pain, like some physical bodily pain, and it reminded me of, and I tweeted like a little bit of a thread on how different ways of like I just, for me, I identified as someone who has had or has a really high pain tolerance, for example. And for me, I always just thought like I was just built like that. But for me, it occurred to me that it might not necessarily be that I have a high pain tolerance. That could be part of it, for sure. But there's a lot of ways that I have been personally socialized to dismiss my pain and ignore it and be dissociated from and disconnected from my body and the pain that it experiences and the needs that it has, because of gender dysphoria, because of being socialized by caretakers, authority figures in my life, by like even things like racism, how people racialize me even as a kid growing up, like that, and also other adjacent gender things, all of the ways that you exist in the world or have been subjected to certain identities in this world, like impact you a lot, right? And for me, there was a lot of constant, like constantly being taught or having to learn certain messages for survival reasons, that my pain and my body don't matter, that it's either selfish for me to express when I am like experiencing discomfort or pain, or that I specifically had been put in a lot of situations where I was hurt by people or or situations or circumstances, and what I had to say about it didn't matter. Um, and there's also like a lot of like ways that I didn't have language for talking about being a trans kid, um, and like not knowing how to articulate like what dysphoria meant to me or how I was experiencing it. But because I had been told in so many ways, also in like professional settings, like hospitals and getting like mental like health care, um, being told on lots of different ways and like invalidated on in lots of ways to not listen to my body or to specifically ignore pain that I was feeling because it didn't seem to be real or matter to anybody else, or specifically that my pain mattered less in certain circumstances. Some kids' needs were heard and listened to and prioritized, and mine weren't. And so there's like all of these like messages about it being important for my survival in the world to not listen to or not be connected to like how my body experiences things or senses anything. And it sucks. And so I was thinking about this and the ways that my body and brain have literally changed how they communicate pain to me this morning. And I know that that might be a kind of heavy topic, but it's what I wanted to talk about today because I know I'm not the only person who struggles with this or has been socialized or told that like my discomfort or even consent just doesn't matter how I feel about things, um, like or like even physical sensations again like pain and discomfort were minimized or ignored. And so I wanted to validate if these are things that resonate with you, that it's really important to spend some time validating yourself. Um, and also, I'm here to help you validate yourself as well because we are a social species and I think a really big part of why ASMR is really helpful for a lot of people is that you can reach out to or feel like you can have some sort of community. And it's people that are a little more usually tuned into understanding that these are things that are important to validate, whether or not it's like this specific topic or theme. So I just wanted to recognize that these are not things that you can always validate for yourself. And I think that on some levels there's ways that a lot of like healing language gets framed in a really like capitalist or isolated sense where or like the idea of self-care as being something that will fix everything. And I think a big part of care in general, and even self-care, is like recognizing that you or like one person that considers themselves a self or an individual is part of a community. And we are supposed to be in community together. Um, and there are problems and issues that arise in people individually, but have community solutions, or people feel like it is on them to fix something. And there's a lot that you can do on your own. Of course, I don't want to take away anybody's agency in that regard, but there's a lot of things that are felt in ways that feel like isolated, or just this is just me, but are things that are experienced by a lot of people, or the solution comes from having social support or having other people around you, or that even just like one person that you can talk to that understands or experiences something similar, or can validate or understand you in some way. So, that being said, obviously, just because um, community solutions are needed for problems that can be individual, it doesn't mean that just because you are experiencing pain, that other people have to fix it for you. And there's a lot of ways that I think when we talk about helping each other, sometimes that like nuance of like having boundaries gets erased, or people don't like recognize that people have different capacities at different times, or people have different relationships to each other, and or even like people who are really close to each other aren't always going to be in alignment in terms of like, I have the energy right now to help you with this thing. So asking is really important. Consent in even that sort of like emotional exchange is really important. Um, and there's also just like levels of recognizing that even when you are in a lot of pain, that doesn't mean that you are entitled to other people's time or energy, which is really hard to integrate or like recognize as an important thing that is not about you personally. Because sometimes when you're in pain, it can feel like this is the only thing that is happening right now. I'm in so much pain, right? Um, whether it be emotional or mental or physical. Um, it is important for us to help each other out, but also there's also that other level or layer of like recognizing that other people have to enter into that help like willingly and with energy to do it, right? Um, yeah, because there's also levels of like thinking about even like emotional manipulation, where people will threaten others by saying they will do things to themselves to make other people look bad, or to make other people feel like they have to um, stay in a relationship with them, or continue to help them, or all of the ways that that can manifest, right? So, not to say that you are not deserving of help, because everybody deserves help, but it doesn't mean that just because you deserve help that you're going to get it specifically from this one person that you're asking, if that makes sense. Anyway, sorry for all of the rambling. I just feel like my brain is in a place where it's jumping into like different pockets of like, or like reservoirs of like lots of thoughts that I have built around different topics. So it's gonna be a little bit rambly. I said that this video was going to be chatty, didn't I? I hope I did. Anyway, I wanted to affirm that if you are resonating with the feelings or the experience rather of being ignored or invalidated or neglected or not heard, or having your pain or discomfort minimized, or specifically the experiences of not being able to connect to your body or connect to it, your body's needs, and the pain that you feel, the discomfort that you feel, or even like the joy or happiness that you can feel. Um, I'm I like talked about a lot of experiences that sort of come from a place of pain or discomfort, because for me it's really jarring, this realization that I've been having today, how um, disconnected from pain that I am, and I have been for most of my life. Um, and it's not to say that you're in a better place or a worse place if you feel more or less pain or are more or less connected to the pain that your body feels. It specifically for me manifested in ways like um, not understanding that I had dysphoria for a long time. Again, like I said earlier, like I could not, even if I didn't have the words for it, I couldn't like even recognize the feeling of like, this is not like a healthy relationship to my body that I have, or even like feeling dread or feeling gross or bad. Like I could not elaborate beyond that what my body wanted or needed. Um, Even with like being photosensitive or having sensory processing things, it took me a really long time to understand that those were things that I actually dealt with or experienced, because my experience with my body was such that I was very disconnected from any feelings of discomfort and pain, because I was dissociating all the time, because I learned that being connected to, um, experiencing or expressing that I was like felt discomfort or pain, I learned that that was not something that anyone wanted or was interested in, and didn't matter. So these are things that feel like you relate to them, which is hopefully why you are still here, I want to again validate that those are things that happen, and it is horrible and sucks that you and I have been put in situations where these were the lessons that we were constantly having to learn, such that our bodies feel really disconnected from us. And it is important and healthy and good and progress, um, if we push back against these things that we've been taught. But also, progress doesn't have to be linear, and you don't have to have like results right away. That's not what's important. I think being in a place where you can acknowledge first, like, this is where my relationship with my body is right now. This is how these are all of the ways that I have suppressed communication with pain, with discomfort, with even like things that are like more communicative, like boundaries that I have the ways that I have been told not to express them, or even like be able to sense them, what feels okay for me, what doesn't feel okay for me. And it's like a continual practice for everyone, even people who don't specifically have these kinds of trauma or experiences. It's a practice for everyone to be able to figure out, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with, this is how I say I'm not okay with this thing, this is how I say I can do this, but I cannot do this for you. Um, and know that you're doing it out of a place of compassion for yourself and other people. For me, as a person who gives a lot to other people in my life, and in general, I have developed, since I was, again, very young, as part of these socializations, that it's more important for me to be able to self-sacrifice and for me to serve other people, and for other people to feel good, or to prioritize other people and other people's needs before my own. And thinking of this as a good thing, as a way to just be in the world that is like always going to be good, or seen as good, or it will lead to you like feeling good, um, or it's the right thing to do, or that's the only way you have value. Um, all of these things. Um, but in practicing that, in being that person in lots of situations, and lots of different kinds of relationships, um, and situations and places throughout my life, I continue to come to this place of like, I'm feeling very, very like sucked dry. I feel angry and resentful because all I do is give to other people, and I don't feel like I ever receive, or it doesn't feel good because I'm so tired all the time. Or even if I did it out of care, and I don't, like, I did not expect to receive anything in the first place, it feels like I exist to be exploited or used, or um, undervalued, or I feel unappreciated all the time. And a big part of that is recognizing, like, actually, there are so many ways that boundaries for me were not practiced. These are not things that were checked in with me from other people or myself, right? And so it's not something that I want anybody to just like blame themselves for, like, at all. There are different ways where you have been set up to ignore these things, like, especially if you're in a place where the things that I'm talking about are relatable. And in general, various structures in the world expect people to be okay with exploitation, capitalism, for example. And I want people to recognize that it is something that everyone needs to practice, in terms of even being able to, or being in a space where you can check in with others about, like, is this really okay? When you said that you would do this, um, like, especially if you know they're the type of person to like constantly, that just never says no to anything, it's important and a good practice to check in with others. Do you really have time for this? Or do you really have the energy for this? It is okay for you to say no. Like giving that extra, space for them to advocate for themselves or communicate can be really, really important and helpful. And then also for yourself, if other people aren't doing it for you, one thing that you can do is ask for that. Ask other people to check in with you when you say you'll do something. Not that you don't mean it or that you don't want to, but like having this conversation of, I recognize that I have this pattern, or I practice, like in practice, or I would like to practice different ways of like advocating for myself, because I notice that I tend to say yes to more things than I can actually handle all the time. So asking me again might be really helpful, and that's something that you can ask. And you can also ask yourself, am I really okay with this? Can I see myself doing this sustainably for the amount of time that I said that I would? Or if it is a longer term commitment, can I handle that? Is this sustainable for me? Also, if you are someone who ends up justifying doing things a lot of the times because it doesn't feel good, but you can handle it or you can get through it, if it doesn't feel like something that will take a really, really, like, take too much out of you, or it feels like you might be miserable, but only for a short amount of time, being in a place where you can reflect on, like, how many times have I said this to myself? Do I enter into a lot of situations where I'm sort of like justifying or like negotiating with myself, like constantly, like, I can do this thing because it'll only make me miserable for this amount of time, but you continue to do it over and over and over and over again. This is a place where you can check in with yourself in terms of, why do I do that? Sometimes it makes sense, or the situation is such that you have to make a sacrifice like that. But if it's something that you do repeatedly and is a pattern that shows up constantly in your life, that means that this is something, like, you are saying yes to being miserable a lot, over and over and over again, right? And so thinking about that, or thinking about a kind of life that you do want to live, or what is sustainable, is really important. And this is like the beginning of like a longer conversation, I think, that people need to have with themselves, myself included, for sure. But I thought I would do a little bit of a chatty, affirmation-y video about it. Hope this was helpful to somebody. Hope you are taking care. See you in the next one.